Welcome everyone to our final episode of our definitive ranking of The Legend of Zelda. We are really coming down to it.
Yes.
You've used your Nehru's love to secure Oracle of Ages as above Breath of the Wild.
Mm-hmm.
But our number one game, of course, so far is Ocarina of Time. Followed by that, we've got Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link, Link's Awakening, Phantom Hourglass, Oracle of Seasons, Skyward Sword, Spirit Tracks, Twilight Princess, The Wind Waker, and the worst Zelda game, Minish Cap.
Poor Minish Cap.
Are you ready to do our final four?
I am ready. Still some heavy hitters here.
I know.
Do I even know what the... Oh, yeah, of course.
There's some big ones.
I know what these are.
They're all
so
big
many
ones,
there
right?
can be. A Link Between Worlds.
Okay.
This is one of the hardest games for me to place.
Uh-huh.
Because I think it's a fantastic game.
It is.
I've recently replayed it, and I love it. I love that they revisited such a beloved world, because I love A Link to the Past, and we're going to talk about that later. I like the gameplay. I like the art style. At first, it was weird. It's kind of not top down. It's top down with a little bit of an angle to it. Not quite the 2.5D like Phantom Hourglass or Spirit Tracks, but there's still 3D models and whatnot. But yeah, it's just like you hurt your neck looking at it for a second.
To me, it is like, I'm not saying of quality, but it is like Minish Cap or Oracle of Seasons, where it is kind of doing another Zelda game.
Yes.
It does everything well, I think, though.
In the final analysis, though, I think of it as the poor man's version of A Link to the Past, though. Despite it being visually upgraded and...
That's fair, but A Link to the Past is not on our list right
now. I know. So wherever I put this, A Link to the Past is being higher.
I agree with that. I think most people would agree with that. I think that's not a hot take. I don't think.
I don't know if there's a person out there there's got to be a few people.
Let us know in the comments.
For all you people that think A Link Between Worlds is the definitive Zelda game out there,
but to me, it is not. Okay, so Minish Cap, I'll bring it up again. It's aggressively okay. Oracle of Seasons it's a pretty good version of The Legend of Zelda. Or whatever. To me, A Link Between Worlds is a really good version of A Link to the Past. Not as good, but it's really good.
Okay.
So before we haven't gotten to the nitty gritty of talking about it, but I think it's above Seasons at least. It is, I think, in this upper half. But it doesn't stand out as like this hugely original game either.
I will say that I think it is in the upper half of the games that are on the table right now. I'm not sure if it's in the upper half.
Oh,
overall.
Sure. That's what I'm saying too. Yeah.
I'm in agreement I agree with you on that one.
To me, it puts up a fight to maybe be a upper tier Zelda game, but it stops short just because it's like the only original thing really is the wall mechanic. Yeah. I don't think this is something they're going to revisit ever. I think this was a one-off thing. Sure, but that's all right.
Yeah. I remember playing Ocarina of Time shortly after replaying A Link Between Worlds, and there was an area where it's like, oh, I'm on a platform, I got to get to the other platform, and there's a wall right here. I'm like, oh, wait, you can't merge into the wall.
That's the thing that Breath of the Wild has done now, too.
Yeah, you think there's a solution. You're thinking outside the box or using a tool that's not in the game you're actually playing.
Yeah.
That was a Scarecrow song, you hit the hookshot across, but
that's not gonna be a long time thing, you know.
Yeah.
Like Breath of the Wild, I think, introduced stuff that I'm like almost forever gonna be like, why can't I sprint or why can't I climb this? Or you know. So yeah, I think it belongs on this the upper tier of what we've had now.
Yeah.
Not upper tier, but not the bottom, I'll say.
I'm looking at our current list. I think it fits best right in between Link's Awakening and Phantom Hourglass. Link's Awakening has the uniqueness.
That's true.
It was the first of its kind to an extent, and it was a handheld game.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a lot of quirky things in there. It was all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
I think they felt maybe because it was on the Game Boy that they're like, let's try out some things that we probably wouldn't be as risky on a console. It's like, let's throw a Goomba in here. Who cares?
Sure.
Let's make references to Sim City in the game. Like because that makes sense in the Zelda universe.
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, okay, let's.
Yeah, Phantom Hourglass is unique.
It is. Yeah.
A Link Between Worlds wins out a little bit more for me because it has a lot of cool classic dungeons, I think.
I like the dungeons. I actually don't like that you can go to anywhere. And once you get to Low Rule, you can go to 6 of the 7 dungeons right away. I actually almost think that's too many options. I prefer the more like linear. It guides you towards a way, but you can divert from it. So like A Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time had that where in the once you become an adult, you can do the dungeons in a different order, but they give a suggested order. I like that. A Link Between Worlds just throws you out there. Go do what you want to do. Sort of like Breath of the Wild in that sense.
I kind of like it, but it's not really changing my ranking. I'll agree with you on this, actually. I could be convinced that it could go above Link's Awakening. I could be convinced that it could go below Phantom Hourglass. Like, in this area, it seems right to me. Above, as long as it's above Seasons, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
If that's the standard, we're in agreement.
So what, we got 3 left?
We got three left. All big hitters, too.
All big hitters, yeah.
Well, 2 out of the 3 are big hitters. You don't know which ones I'm talking about, are you?
I know what you're talking about.
You know who I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about. A Link to the Past. This is the gold standard of The Legend of Zelda.
I try to look for a flaw in this game, and I can't find it. I'm still looking for it. It's been 30 years. I still can't find it.
Okay, let's cut to the chase with this one. Why don't we?
Okay, I think it's number 1. I think it's got the gameplay was the best. It's the best Super Nintendo game I've ever played. The best video game I've ever played. It's so polished. The gameplay is awesome. I love the diversity of the enemies. I love the diversity of the bosses. I love the diversity of the inventory. You get like 25 items in there. I love the 2 worlds when it introduced. This was the first game that introduced that concept of you have this light world and you go to the dark world and it's like the evil version of everything.
Okay.
And it's
That's
a lot
really
of
cool, yeah.
the familiar locations, but it's like they're all like corrupted and weird. Like it's the same. The map is more or less the same, but it's like different.
Yeah.
And I love that you can go back and forth with the mirror. It's very dungeon heavy.
Yes.
In that
they're great dungeons too.
There's like 11 dungeons in the game. I think it has the record for most dungeons.
Yeah. Some pretty unique ones too.
Yeah. Now, granted, the 2D they didn't have the elemental pieces as much. They were just like the Swamp Palace where you needed the flippers and you're constantly going in the water.
Had the ice and
the Ice Palace. I think the music I think it's the best soundtrack, or at least one of them. It has so many songs that were introduced here. Zelda's Lullaby was introduced here. The Hyrule Castle theme. To me, one of my favorite songs is the Dark World, the ending theme, the credits theme. Even like the Kakariko Village theme was introduced here. The Lost Woods was great. Dark Death Mountain. The music, fantastic.
Sure. But Ocarina of Time.
But no,
I think Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past, they share, I think, a lot of similarities.
They do. I in some cases, I almost view Ocarina of Time as a 3D version of A Link to the Past.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think one thing that, for me, at times puts Ocarina of Time over the edge is that those dungeons feel so much more unique. Like, there are certain A Link to the Past dungeons where I think maybe they're better designed. There's more cool navigation of where to go, where to use your keys and stuff like that the series has lost a little bit, I think, starting with Ocarina of Time. But Ocarina of Time, like, it has those elemental ideas and you feel like you're in different places, and they have these, like, you enter a dungeon and you get a pan of this awesome looking room that A Link to the Past, I don't think, has that all the time.
Yeah, I think some of that is that it's a 2D game.
Yeah, but I mean, I think the Oracle of Ages kind of had, you had a one where you're underwater and stuff, like they found a way to make it work.
Yeah.
But I think they wouldn't have been pushed to do that if Ocarina of Time didn't introduce those kind of things and inspire the series a little bit.
I think a lot of Ocarina of Time's inspirations come from A Link to the Past, though.
Yeah. That's no doubt.
The formula, just the basic, like the skeleton formula of how to make a successful Zelda game started with A Link to the Past.
Yeah.
I feel you got you get the initial dungeon, then there's a huge plot twist. After the first 3 areas, you get the Master Sword. It's really a carbon copy when you think of it from a skeleton version.
It is, yeah. I think it adds a lot to it though, and it doesn't detract too much from what A Link to the Past is great, if that makes sense.
No, that I agree.
Yeah, and I like when we're talking about music, it added to the already great soundtrack and added its own unique songs that stick out, I think, even more. I think like Gerudo Valley is one.
Yes.
There's a lot of songs like that where they took Zelda's Lullaby and they took what's another song they took? I can't. Kakariko Village.
Yep.
And to me they almost made the definitive versions of those songs too. Like, I would rather listen to those than...
Man.
Yeah. Is this one... This is one we're stuck on, right?
I think it's number 1.
Yeah.
I think it's above Ocarina of Time. Where do you fit it in?
Just below Ocarina of Time.
Man.
The thing that tears me the most about it is those dungeons. Like, A Link to the Past... It has something that is missing from a lot of modern Zelda games of I'm in the dungeon and where do I go?
Yes. There's a degree of challenge in A Link to the Past. It's there in Ocarina as well. But I think it's more so maybe it's just the 2D, like you're looking at the map and where you haven't been, how do I get there? In some of the dungeons you're revisiting rooms, but sometimes you come in from a new area, like in the Dark Palace, that main chamber, you're coming in multiple times. Or you suddenly in like Swamp House you have the hook shot. Now this room is different now. Like, I can go on the second level and hook shot to some of these pots and reach new areas.
Ocarina of Time doesn't always have that necessarily. Like there's not many moments. I mean, maybe your first time, but it's still like they don't give you a lot of, like A Link to the Past, they give you a lot of options. Like you can get a bunch of keys right away. There's a ton of rooms that are already accessible. Yeah. But it's like the dungeon is the puzzle. Like where do I go? Where instead of the dungeon being filled with puzzles.
Yeah. In a dungeon like Misery Mire, the 6th crystal, I think you can beat that dungeon by going to less than half of the rooms in the whole dungeon if you do it efficiently. Nobody's doing that on their first time. Yeah. Because they want to explore and see what's over here and here.
But that's not to say also that it's like easy.
No, it's not.
Like you really have to know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you're gonna end up going to a lot of the rooms multiple times, going, "Is this where I need to go?" Yeah. Ocarina of Time, usually you get a key and it's like there's only one door you can ever spend it on. Except for I think like the Water Temple really sticks out as like making that work really well in 3D. Of like, where do I go with I got to change the water, But that's the only thing. But I think the elemental and like you're in a tree, you're in like stuff like that edges it up a little bit.
So like for me, A Link to the Past is the best game, but Ocarina of Time and A Link to the Past are my 1 and 2. Yeah. So they're not to say they're interchangeable. I'm not going to say that. I've already used my neighbor's love to put Oracle of Ages there, so I don't have that luxury here. My world would not be broken if A Link to the Past is number 2. Okay. So I will very reluctantly put it in at number 2.
All right. I'm very sorry to make you do that.
With a tear in my eye. A Link to the Past is still the greatest game.
A Link, yeah.
But Ocarina of Time.
Yeah.
They're both on Mount Rushmore.
That's, absolutely.
Game Informer put A Link to the Past as the greatest game of all time.
They might not be wrong.
No, they're right. But, this is not Game Informer. This is not my opinion. This is our
We're the
collective
Ocarina of Time channel. Wow, that must hurt.
Yeah. We got 2 more to go.
I haven't used my Neighbor's Love.
Where it all began.
The Legend of Zelda.
This is the hardest game to put on any list, I think.
Yeah.
Because it's like, when you think of comparing The Legend of Zelda to Ocarina of Time, you're like, well, Ocarina of Time has this, and this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, this is a game from 1986. When you compare it to Minish Cap has this, and this. And like, this is such a simplistic game when you look back at it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have a lot of things that are now in the series all over the place.
Yeah. It was very unique for the series at the time.
Yeah, it did a lot of firsts for the series.
I will say, one way you can compare it, I think, against some of the other games, we've done some videos on it past couple months where it has some things that the series hasn't fully touched since, I don't think.
Yeah.
It has a progression of difficulty that I think we've kind of decided was the best.
Yeah, well, yeah.
The overworld is one of the best overworlds,
Yeah.
as far as also the progression of exploration.
Yeah, and like they put a lot of the simple enemies around the starting location, where they kept Lionels, and even in the underworld, the dungeons. More difficult enemies are you don't encounter them. You don't encounter blue dark nuts in the first few dungeons, or you don't encounter Patra, and they have enemies that are secured for the harder to reach portions of the overworld and some of the later dungeons, and that's awesome. I love that. And like we talked about Skyward Sword, how like you're fighting the same enemies from the beginning towards the end.
Yeah.
Same thing with Breath of the Wild to a lesser extent, but
yeah, that might be the best diversity for sure.
yeah.
Now, I'm not trying to place it right now, but I'm like, while Oracle of Ages, like, kind of perfected that style as I claimed earlier, I think there's still some of that stuff from the Legend of Zelda that's not like present in Oracle of Ages, So maybe not perfected, but you know what I mean, or like improved upon that style to make the best possible game out of it. It could.
Yeah.
But it's still missing some things that make that game great.
Yeah.
I would not put it above Oracle of Ages.
I don't think so either.
No.
Because as we've talked about, I'm not sure if this game has aged well. I don't know if it's still playable today as it was in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is perhaps the only game in the series that hasn't aged great.
I lately,
I know we disagreed on this in the Hyrule Compendium.
yeah, I've been playing it a lot lately, and it's become to me like Ocarina of Time, where it's a relaxing game to play. There's some really horrible rooms we've talked about.
The blue dark nut rooms.
Blue
of
Dark
death.
Nuts, the Wizrobes. But overall, just like, maybe because I've been playing it a lot, but it's like, yeah, I love just killing some Octoroks and stuff like that. Like, to me, it has aged well in certain ways. Like, it's not a game where you could sit down and beat without a guide if you're a modern gamer.
Especially if you're brand new to the series and you haven't.
I don't even think you could back then, though, right? They were publishing
God.
guides in Nintendo Power for the whole freaking game.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a positive or negative, actually.
It's sort of a negative.
Yeah.
But
Too cryptic, actually.
yeah, and yeah, so I think that tiny part of it hasn't aged well, but I think it's like once you know the game, it becomes a whole different game. Like,
okay.
We talked about that in the video where now you're like, how do I run it? Do I go to level 2? Do I go to level 3 first? Like what order do I do these things? Like it's like the speed running, if you want to call it that, becomes a fun challenge.
So when it comes to ranking it, I'm going to start off where I think it fits relatively.
Okay.
And I'm going to put it right next to Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
Okay.
They were the two classic games.
Sure.
The two original NES games. And while I think Adventure of Link is obviously more unique by today's standards, it's got a lot going for it with the music. The Legend of Zelda also has some of the best tunes, actually, as well. The title theme, the overworld theme. They're similar songs, actually the same song, but at different, with different stuff going on. The underworld is a classic theme. I'm tempted to put Legend of Zelda a notch over Adventure of Link.
Like, this is the other thing with Adventure of Link, where it's like, how do you, like, there hasn't been another Adventure of Link game.
to perfect like what they've done with Legend of Zelda.
Yeah.
Where A Link to the Past came out and like, oh yeah, A Link to the Past. That's a much better version of that game.
But okay, so my feeling about it might affect this a little bit too. If I was going to put it, I personally would put it a notch below Link's Awakening.
Oh, okay.
Because which is that like wrong to be like Zelda is worse than Zelda 2? Like, is that a crime? You know what I mean?
No, I don't think that's a crime. And I think, Legend of Zelda and Link's Awakening had sort of the same graphical limitations too. I mean, one was, they only came out 3-4 years apart from one another.
Yeah. Similar gameplay. Like I said, the things we said that Legend of Zelda does really well, I think Link's Awakening doesn't necessarily match that. Difficulty progression, it's,
not really.
It's got difficulty progression, but it's not like that,
The Link's Awakening, those last two dungeons in particular, Eagle's Tower and Turtle Rock, were very complicated. They had, like the scale of the number of rooms in the dungeon just doubled.
Yeah, it was like a jump, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Diversity of enemies, though, it's all right, and it's got those unique Mario ones we said.
Yeah.
Yeah, to me, it feels like similar to The Legend of Zelda, but this really unique, quirky take on it with a cool story and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But you're saying above Zelda 2.
I do. I think so. I like Zelda. Legend of Zelda also had, even for the most experienced players, who you found every secret in the game, you finally beat the game, and suddenly they throw out there's a whole nother quest.
Yeah. Maybe the right thing to do is to put it between those two games.
Man, that's a hard sell to say that Zelda Adventure of a Link is better than Legend of Zelda. But
it's a compromise, though, right?
Okay, all right. As long as it's better than Link's Awakening.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
I don't fully agree, but I didn't put Link's Awakening on the Mount Rushmore.
Yep. Legend. Yep. It's the original one. It fits there.
Last episode I thought, man, or not last one, but you were really throwing your weight around Nehru's loving Oracle of Ages all the way to the top. But now you're making some concessions, and I appreciate that about you.
Okay. Well, we got one more game. We don't even need to open it because we know it is Majora's Mask. And
it's a favorite of mine.
God, it couldn't have come at a worse time.
I know.
Or I guess it couldn't have come at a better time because if we had this on the list earlier, we would be arguing about it every single game that came out.
Yeah.
Because
I love the game, and you don't really like it that much.
I think it's a good game.
Yeah.
To me, it didn't have enough in the main story. And I don't even know what the hell the main story is in this game. Because it's like, if you play this game without diving deep into the side quests, like if you're just trying to beat the game, the story doesn't really make sense to me. There's not much there. It's the main progression of the story is weird. It's not there. The whole story is in the side material. You have to complete this game almost 100%. Not really 100%, but you have to engage with these characters in order to experience the game.
Well, okay, for one, I think there is actually a good amount of stuff in this main story. You go, you get your stuff stolen, and then you have to help this fairy, and it's kind of like a not as good relationship as like with Midna, but where you kind of begrudgingly, but then you become friends to stop the world from ending. And it's like, okay, how do you do that? You have to go to these 4 areas, and then you go to these 4 areas, and they have pretty good stories connected to all the dungeons, I think.
Yeah, the areas were unique. Like they're very unique, actually. Snow-filled area, the swamp.
And they're all, and there's like this total. You see how you affect them after you beat them.
Yes, when you cure them.
Yeah, and I think the story with the monkey is fun, especially for the first one you do. I think the story with the Goron and the kid is.
Him crying and everybody's freezing. This is not a happy story.
They're all like after the monkey one. That's not really that sad, but then with the Zora with Macau and that whole thing. I think that's really sad. And then Stone Tower, you get the little story with the Gibdo guy, and then the Ikana.
I like Skullkita.
Yeah, you actually get all these little stories that all happen on the way, and I like that they gave these kind of 4 unique stories. Like when Ocarina of Time actually does it really well for the most part, where each dungeon has a story connected with it, but these really do. Like, they give you a unique story as to why you need to be in these dungeons doing the thing, beyond also saving the world.
Yeah. The stories are kind of isolated. The 4 dungeons have their own in-game storyline in that sense. I still think, though, the what makes this game great is the optional content.
Yeah.
Like, the little things in here. I love there's so many tear-jerking moments in this game.
Yeah.
When you save Pamela and Pamela's dad, who's been zombified, you play the Song of Healing, and they have a reunion, and they have fun.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Anju and Cafe quest comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
They have their wedding on the day the world is ending.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
To me, that's a strength of the game, though.
It is. It in terms of optional content, it's one of the best. But I don't know if I can rank it higher than some of the other ones. I like some of the experience when I think of a game like The Legend of Zelda, and like all it did for the series. I don't know. I think we're worlds apart on this one.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest with you, I think it's in the middle of the pack. That's where I would put it. There is no way any argument is going to get me to say that this is a better game than Link's Awakening, or a better game than The Legend of Zelda.
Interesting.
There's no argument that's going to make it that way.
I think it has like some of the strongest dungeons.
Oh God, I totally disagree. It only has 4 of them, and
I don't. The amount wise, it's lacking a little bit.
I think Woodfall is bleh. I don't think it's very memorable. I don't think it's great. I didn't really enjoy Great Bay Temple at all. I thought it was confusing. I legitimately thought it was a hard dungeon. Not that that's a bad thing, but like.
Oh yeah, I love that one.
Okay, and I think Stone Tower is one of the most frustrating dungeons in the series too.
Okay, well I
think the dungeons are the weakest part of this game. Actually, you think it's a strength?
Yeah, especially because you have a story that leads up to them. It's not super ridiculous like Skyward Sword, in some pretty unique areas that are tied into the overworld. All the dungeons are thematic, like they feel like real places. They have a reason for why they're there, other than, well, there's just some labyrinth over there, and the story leads into them, and then you really see the effect afterwards, not just in the characters being like, I'm okay now, but you see the swamp clear, you see it becomes springtime and stuff like that, and then I think the actual like puzzles in them are pretty good. They're not like A Link to the Past or Ocarina of Time, I'll say.
I would say from a dungeon perspective, it's definitely, we talked extensively about Twilight Princess. It's definitely weaker than that. Definitely weaker than Ocarina. I can't think of any of the 3D games, the console games that Majora's Mask has the worst dungeons. Okay. I think than any of the 3D games, except for Breath of the Wild. I'll give it that.
Okay.
I'm gonna
be respectful here, but of course I got my Nehru's love.
You're gonna use it.
I'm gonna use it.
There is nothing I'm gonna say that's gonna get you to be like, yeah, by the way, I think it's the 8th best Zelda game.
And I say it has to be in the top 5 of Zelda games.
Okay.
I can't say it's better. Like, I think there are things it does that are better than like Ocarina of Time or whatever. And it's maybe my personal favorite, but there are also things that I think maybe Ocarina of Time does better. You know what I mean? Like, for me, there's a give and take a little bit. But I'd say it at least has to be in the top 5. That might make it number 5 then, right?
I would be angry if you put it over A Link to the Past.
Nehru's loved... Using it as a verb is so weird. You did it for Oracle of Ages. I don't want to edge that out. I don't know if it's better or worse than Breath of the Wild. Do you think it's worse than Breath of the Wild?
Yes.
Definitively you do.
Yeah,
okay.
Definitively. Breath of the Wild is a far superior game than Majora's Mask.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm saying 5 then. That's what I'm gonna say.
Okay.
And that's Nehru's love, so there's nothing you can do.
You've Nehru's loved it to 5.
To 5.
You know what? I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised you let it slip that low. Do you really think Breath of the Wild is better than Majora's Mask?
Breath of the Wild shares a lot of similarities with Majora's Mask, actually. Like, they have the kind of the 4 main areas, but then the game is about something bigger, you know?
Yeah, you're totally right about that. Breath of the Wild has a more lively world, I think. Majora's Mask has a one world. Clocktown's one of the best towns in the whole series.
Right.
And you go to these other areas, and is the Woodfall area really populated? And there's a few people here and there. There's the Deku Palace.
There's a decent amount going on. There's not like a town there, but there, you can go on a boat cruise. You can go to the witch's shop. It's kind of spread out in that area.
Yeah.
There's the swamp the spider house. There's the Deku Palace.
I kind of got a Twilight Princess vibe to it a little bit, where everything is centered in Castletown. In this case, Clocktown. Clocktown's a lot more vibrant than Castletown. That's for sure. That's Castletown and Twilight Princess is.
But that makes sense in the game, like, because you see characters like at Romani Ranch being like, I got to take this stuff to Clocktown. Like Clocktown is like the center of the commerce, it seems, too.
Yeah.
You have like a Goron coming to stay. I'm gonna put it at 5. Once you get to a certain point of Zelda games for me, it's hard to like really make that call. Like Majora's Mask has a personal thing for me, but I might recognize that some things about Breath of the Wild are better. So how do you feel looking at our list?
I think this is great. Like when I look at the top 4, that's my top 4.
The top 4, okay.
So I got my
maybe not in that order.
Well, Link to the Past would be ahead.
Yeah,
but you swap Ocarina and Link to the Past. I look at this list, and Majora's Mask is the only oddball to me. I would have knocked it down at least 4 slots, I'd say.
Okay.
But I look at the bottom of the list. I am in 100% agreement with Minish Cap, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, Spirit Tracks, like the bottom 5 are probably, if I made my own list independent from you we'd be very similar, with games tweaking one spot at most, other than Majora's Mask.
Yeah, I probably would. I would be pretty similar. Yeah,
I've convinced you to come to my side.
No, I mean, Majora's Mask being up there is good for me. I think I might have. Well, I don't want to reveal what I voted in our best Zelda ever, but I might have put it higher.
Okay.
But like a lot of these things, you ask me on a certain day.
Yeah.
And I put it at a different place. I feel like we have a clear, like, there were some classic Zelda games, right? And then they've made some cool improvements upon that. But then, like, for me at least, it's like there was an era in the 2000s where they were just kind of like coasting a little bit.
I suppose. I mean, we have only one game from the 2000s on this list in our top. I mean, Majora's Mask and Oracle of Ages and Majora's Mask were both 2000, but they're early 2000s.
Or yeah, like beyond,
the early aughts,
like the GameCube era and on.
Yeah,
it feels like kind of a middling era of Zelda for me.
Yeah, and you can see that in our list with Wind Waker, Minish Cap, Spirit Tracks, like basically everything from 2003 to 2013. It seems.
Yeah,
that's every single game on this list. Actually, the bottom 8. But this is our definitive
list.
The definitive list.
The definitive list. So
I have a feeling that there might not be a person in the world that might have the same one as this.
You think this is a unique list?
Yeah, I think with 16 games, I don't know if there's a single person in the whole world that if we polled 1 million people, I don't know if one of 1 million people would put a list like this together.
Okay. I bet there is someone who thinks Ocarina of Time is the best game, but Minish Cap is the worst game.
There's definitely, somebody, if this was like the lottery and you had to pick where they were, somebody might get 12 out of 16 locations or something.
Well, okay. Leave us a comment with your list. Let us know how you disagree with us. I'm sure we'll see more of the GameCube games be ranked higher.
I'm sure this is a generational thing, too. We're both we grew up with the Super Nintendo or NES or 64 era, so I think some people who grew up with Wind Waker might have that higher.
I always think that, but I also played Wind Waker and Twilight Princess when they came out, and I played them to death.
Okay, but they weren't your first game.
They weren't my first. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So no offense to those games, but
yeah, this is clearly a nostalgia-driven list if you look at it, actually.
If we're being honest with ourselves,
because you take out Breath of the Wild, and there's nothing from the last 15 years in the top 8. Mm-hmm. So,
or it's a commentary on the series,
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild got up there because it rethought what the series has needed to be, They've been trying since N64 era, I think, to be like, what is the next thing? What we put it in 3D, but what do we do? That's our list. Let us know what you think of it. Give us a like, subscribe, check out our other videos, and thank you for watching.